Welcome back to Zorro Recaps. Today, I'm going to explain the movie, Zodiac, released in the year 2007. The second strike by the Zodiac killer marks the beginning of the movie on July 4, 1969. The killer contacts 911 and confesses his actions after killing Mike Mageau and Darlene Ferrin in a Vallejo lover's lane. Ferrin dies from her wounds, while Mageau lives. A letter from the Zodiac is delivered to the San Francisco Chronicle 4 weeks later. The package contains an encrypted note and a threat that the Zodiac will kill once more until the newspaper publishes the letter. The Vallejo Times and the San Francisco Examiner have both received similar demands in separate encrypted letters. Soon after, Paul Avery, Robert Downey Jr., a crime writer for the Chronicle, starts his investigation for the publication. Robert Graysmith, Jake Gyllenhaal, a political cartoonist for the Chronicle, notices the encrypted letter. Eventually, a history teacher in Salinas, California, cracks the encryption. There are still some unread letters, though, and Graysmith starts attempting to understand them, attracting Avery's attention. There are further symbols as well as one that Avery claims like a gun sight. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, Pell James, were confronted and stabbed by the Zodiac murderer in September 1969 in Lake Berryessa in Napa County. The assault kills Shepard, but Hartnell is still alive. The Chronicle then receives a fresh letter from Zodiac, in which he refers to people as the most dangerous game of all. Robert immediately recognizes the phrase as being from a movie based on the novel, The Most Dangerous Game. Soon afterward, Paul Stine, a San Francisco taxi driver, is shot and killed in the city's Presidio Heights district. The case is sent to San Francisco police detectives Dave Toschi, Mark Ruffalo, and Bill Armstrong, Anthony Edwards, but they find the killer's actions baffling. Soon later, the Chronicle gets a fresh Zodiac letter including a fragment of the taxi driver's bloodied clothing. In the letter, the Zodiac also reveals his attack plan against municipal school buses. As they study the facts around Zodiac, Toschi and Armstrong quickly find themselves communicating with other investigators like Jack Mullinax, Elias Cotillas, in Vallejo and Ken Narlo, Donald Logue, in Napa. Narlo describes how a ranger unintentionally damaged the Napa murder scene while the SFPD was able to obtain a partial fingerprint from the taxicab crime scene. They did discover wing walker boot prints on the ground, though these shoes could only be bought with a military ID. When Armstrong tries to interview Michael Mageau, the survivor of the Zodiac's second murder, Vallejo PD informs him that he is no longer in the area. Given that a large portion of sending tangible evidence must be done only by postal mail, the various police agencies also have communication difficulties. Following the incident, Avery, Graysmith, Toschi, and Armstrong have their own private chats in which they speculate about the Zodiac's motivations. The two groups of men assume he is attempting to break his pattern because the cab driver was his first death that wasn't committed with a romantic partner. Soon later, the Zodiac, or someone posing as him, calls a morning talk program and asks to meet with famous attorney Melvin Belli, Brian Cox. Sam, the caller, a man with a deep voice, phones in. Sam agrees to meet Melvin and suggests they go to a Daly City church. The caller was someone from a mental facility, and when Sam doesn't show up, Melvin and the SFPD race to the area. Even Brian Hartnell, who survived the third murder committed by the Zodiac, confirms that the voice does not belong to the guy he met at Lake Berryessa. Another letter insulting the police and containing instructions for making an explosive device will shortly be delivered to the Chronicle. Following this, Avery and Greystone talk about how much they are interested in the letters. Greystone states that because of his interest in riddles, the task of cracking the Zodiac's ciphers appealed to him. Additionally, he describes the several codes he discovered in the letters, including one known as the Zodiac alphabet. Melvin Belli receives a letter from the Zodiac for Christmas in 1969, and during the spring and summer of 1970, the Zodiac writes other letters to the Chronicle, once more mocking the police and taking credit for a number of crimes. As soon as Avery raises doubts about the Zodiac's truthfulness, the Chronicle chooses to cease publishing the letters. Graysmith is informed by Paul that the gun sight symbol on the letters looks to have been taken directly from the logo for the Zodiac watchline. Avery receives a handwritten letter from the Zodiac and a piece of the bloodied taxi driver's shirt as rewards for writing several unfavorable pieces about the Zodiac. Paul meets with an unnamed source in Riverside, California, in an effort to learn more about the Zodiac. Avery thinks he has discovered proof of the Zodiac's first murder victim from this, predating the 1969 shooting of Darlene Ferrin and Mike Mageau. Toschi and Armstrong are sent to Riverside to look into this. Although the evidence appears to be identical, they exclude it from being an exact match to their killer. Toshi, though, is enraged at how many viewers believe Paul Avery's claims. Many of the individuals who approach Toshi and the SFPD after reading Avery's piece claim to know who the Zodiac is. The interview with Arthur Lee Allen, John Carroll Lynch, seems the most promising out of all the interviews. Then Toshi, Armstrong, and Mullinax question Arthur, but they don't find anything specific. They speak with a number of Arthur's relatives, who provide handwriting samples for analysis. Sherwood Morrill, a handwriting expert, examined the letters, but found no correlations. In the end, Arthur's family informs Toshi that he has relocated to Santa Rosa. The Santa Rosa PD issues a search warrant, so Toshi and Armstrong search Arthur's trailer. They discover several firearms, and they quickly face Arthur when he gets home. Toshi is furious that his greatest lead didn't work out because after acquiring a new handwriting sample and looking at his prints, nothing about Arthur matches any of the data that Zodiac has on record. Toshi and his wife watch Dirty Harry in an effort to relax. When it's over, Toshi and Graysmith meet in the lobby. Robert promises Toshi he'll catch the Zodiac, but Toshi doesn't seem very confident. 4 years later, it is 1975. Graysmith has remarried and has started a family again during that period. Paul Avery, meantime, left the Chronicle and started working for the Sacramento Bee when his sanity took a plunge. When Bill Armstrong, Dave Toshi's partner, informs him that he is switching from the homicide department to the fraud department, Dave Toshi is taken aback. The Zodiac has not spoken at this period. Robert sees Paul and reveals his desire to publish a book on Zodiac after Melanie Graysmith, Chloe Sevigny, highlights all the Zodiac memorabilia he has accumulated over the years. Robert's expectations are shattered when Paul reprimands the interested guy and claims that he no longer has any information on the killer. Dave Toshi is questioned next by Robert. Toshi, although denying he can assist Robert, discreetly advises him to contact Ken Narlow in Napa. Robert is given access by Narlow to the Napa police's evidence in the Mike Mageau and Darlene Ferrin case. The Zodiac may have been one of Darlene's fans, Robert goes on to say to Toshi. Darlene appeared to have a lot of admirers. Graysmith was more convinced that the murderer knew Darlene after hearing strange phone conversations with heavy breathing on the line made to several of her relatives the night she was killed. Robert insists that he must locate Darlene's sister, but Toshi also advises him to contact Melvin Belli. When Robert visits the lawyer, he has an unusual conversation with one of his housekeepers during which she reveals that the Zodiac spoke to her. The Zodiac instructed the housekeeper that he had to murder that day since it was Mr. Belli's birthday even though he wasn't at home. With the help of this evidence, Robert is able to focus on the days of December 18th through December 20th. Toshi advises him to contact the Department of Justice for more information, but he receives little assistance. Soon later, Bob receives a call from a guy claiming that Rick Marshall is the true Zodiac and that Bob Vaughn has film canisters with proof that Rick is the Zodiac. Robert also visits Sherwood Morrill to discuss samples of his handwriting and fingerprints. During the conversation, Sherwood describes how Wallace Penny informed him Rick Marshall was the Zodiac, stunning Robert by revealing that the same person who contacted Robert also talked to Sherwood. When the SFPD gets its first Zodiac letter in 4 years, Toshi is summoned back there. Toshi is expelled from the homicide section as a result of the suspicion that he fabricated the letter, which some believe Toshi did. Toshi tries to engage Robert in conversation, but Dave won't discuss Rick Marshall. Robert then meets Ken Narlow in Napa for a conversation. Narlow describes how he spoke with Rick Marshall but was unable to obtain any samples of his handwriting or fingerprints. Robert phones Morrill in an effort to locate Marshall and obtains Wallace Penny's contact information. Wallace sends Robert a flyer that he claims Rick designed for a theater showing silent films. Morrill investigates it and notes a few minor parallels to Zodiac, but he needs more details to fully analyze it. Robert's life has now been completely consumed with the inquiry. His wife takes their children and flees when he is fired from the Chronicle because of concern that the Zodiac may attack their family. Robert's phone number has also been called by someone who then hangs up after exhaling heavily. In addition to asking Bob Vaughn for assistance, Robert keeps looking for Darlene Ferrin's sister Linda in an effort to find her. When Robert discusses the posters they are searching through for proof, Bob asserts that he drew all the posters, not Rick Marshall, despite the fact that Vaughn met Rick Marshall many years ago when he worked as a theater projectionist. Robert hastily departs the area as he struggles with his current thoughts. Soon later, Robert visits Linda, Darlene's sister, who is incarcerated. Robert queries her in regards to a rumored painting party, where a man was causing Darlene to feel nervous. Robert is certain that this was Rick Marshall, while Linda claims that it was someone else by the name of Lee, instead of Rick. Robert runs to Toshi's house in the middle of the night to inform him that he believes this is Arthur Lee Allen, and the former murder investigator eventually agrees to a meeting after becoming convinced of this. Robert identifies many possible connections between Arthur and the Zodiac when the two are in a diner, but Toshi insists that all he has is indirect proof. Some others even believed that the Zodiac may have been someone Darlene knew because Arthur resided close to her place of employment. Toshi urges Robert to complete his book on the Zodiac even though he maintains that he cannot back up any of the information Robert has provided. The scene then flashes back to December 1983. When Robert enters a Vallejo hardware store, Arthur Lee Allen is standing there. Before Graysmith leaves the store, no words are spoken. Mike Mageau meets with the authorities in 1991, 8 years later, and is given a number of mugshots. When asked which of the guys had the greatest chance of becoming the Zodiac, he selects Arthur Lee Allen. We learn the following details in the closing credits. Before the authorities could interview Arthur Lee Allen further, he passed away in 1992 from a heart attack. An incomplete sample taken from one of the Zodiac letters in a 2002 DNA test did not match. In the years after his 1989 retirement from the San Francisco Police Department, Dave Toshi was exonerated of all allegations that he had falsified the 1978 Zodiac letter. Pulmonary emphysema was the cause of Paul Avery's death in December 2000. That's all for this video. Subscribe if you want content like this and leave a like and also comment the name of your favorite movie. Goodbye.